Have you ever felt invisible? Like your words, your actions, your very presence goes completely unnoticed by the people around you. That feeling of being ignored can cut deep, leaving wounds that don't easily heal. But what if I told you that in those moments when you feel most invisible, you're actually making a profound impact on those around you? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating psychological phenomenon that shapes our social interactions more than we realize: the disconnect between feeling ignored and actually being noticed. The truth is, human perception is deceptive. We're wired to notice the reactions we receive from others, but we often miss the subtle, internal responses happening beneath the surface. Just because someone doesn't outwardly acknowledge you doesn't mean they haven't registered your presence, your words, or your actions in ways that might surprise you. Think about your own experience for a moment. How many times have you observed someone without them knowing? Perhaps you noticed their unique style, appreciated their confidence, or admired something they said or did, all without ever expressing it to them. We're constantly processing information about the people around us, forming impressions, and making judgments, often without giving any external indication. This reality exists on both sides of human interaction. While you're wondering if anyone notices you, someone else is noticing everything about you without showing it. The silence doesn't always mean absence of thought. Sometimes it's quite the opposite. Our brains are constantly scanning our environment, evaluating potential threats, opportunities, and social dynamics. This happens automatically, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. Neuroscience has shown that we form impressions of others within milliseconds of seeing them. These impressions may never translate into visible reactions, but they absolutely influence how people think about and relate to you. Let's explore why this disconnect exists in the first place. Human beings are complex creatures operating under various social constraints. We've evolved elaborate systems of social filters that determine what reactions we display versus what we keep to ourselves. These filters serve many purposes: maintaining social harmony, protecting ourselves from vulnerability, adhering to cultural norms, or simply preserving our own energy. In professional settings, these filters become even more pronounced. The colleague who seems to dismiss your ideas in a meeting might later incorporate aspects of your thinking into their work. The manager who appears distracted during your presentation might be mentally know your skills for a future opportunity. The classmate who never acknowledges your comments might be quietly respecting your perspective. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's backed by psychological research. Studies on social cognition consistently show that we process far more information about others than we ever express outwardly. One study from Harvard University found that people form lasting impressions from interactions as brief as 5 seconds, yet rarely communicate these impressions directly to the person being observed. The digital world has complicated this dynamic even further. Think about your own behavior on social media. You might scroll through someone's profile without leaving a like or comment, yet their content has still made an impression on you. You've seen their vacation photos, their achievements, their thoughts, all without giving them any indication that you've been paying attention. This same phenomenon is happening to your content, your posts, your digital presence. The metrics you see, likes, comments, shares, represent only a fraction of the actual impact you're having. This disconnect between feeling ignored and actually being noticed creates significant tension in our social lives. We crave acknowledgement and validation, yet the architecture of human interaction often denies us clear feedback about the impression we're making. This uncertainty can breed insecurity, anxiety, and a distorted perception of our social standing. But there's profound freedom in recognizing this truth. When you understand that people's outward reactions aren't necessarily indicative of their internal assessments, you can approach social situations with greater confidence and authenticity. You can release yourself from the constant need for explicit validation and trust that your presence is making an impact, even when that impact isn't immediately visible. This understanding doesn't mean you should become indifferent to feedback or stop seeking meaningful connection. Rather, it invites you to develop a more nuanced understanding of human interaction, one that acknowledges the complex, often invisible processes happening beneath the surface of our social exchanges. Consider how this insight might transform your approach to various aspects of life. In professional settings, it could help you persist with valuable contributions, even when they don't receive immediate recognition. In personal relationships, it might help you communicate more openly, bridging the gap between internal impressions and external expressions. In creative pursuits, it could give you the courage to share your work, knowing that its impact extends far beyond the visible feedback you receive. The reality of human psychology suggests that we're making hundreds of impressions every day that we'll never know about. Your kindness to a stranger might become a story they tell years later. Your thoughtful question in a meeting might shift a colleague's thinking in ways they never attribute to you. Your authentic self-expression might inspire someone who never tells you about it. This invisible impact extends to negative impressions as well. The harsh words you speak in anger might lodge in someone's memory far longer than you intend. The dismissive gesture you make without thinking might alter how someone perceives themselves. The opportunity you overlook might be deeply meaningful to someone who notices your inattention. This isn't meant to create paranoia, but rather to cultivate awareness of our broader social influence. What's particularly fascinating is how this phenomenon shapes our perception of ourselves. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect, our tendency to overestimate how much others notice or care about our appearance and behavior. Research consistently shows that we believe we're being observed and evaluated much more intensely than we actually are. This creates a contradictory situation where we simultaneously feel invisible and overly exposed. The truth lies somewhere in between. Yes, people are noticing you, but usually not with the critical intensity that your insecurities might suggest. They're forming impressions, but those impressions are filtered through their own concerns, preoccupations, and biases. They're thinking about you, but probably not in the way or to the degree that you imagine. This balanced understanding points toward a more grounded approach to social interaction. Instead of oscillating between feeling invisible and feeling scrutinized, we can recognize that we exist in others' awareness in complex, nuanced ways that don't always manifest as direct feedback. So how can we apply this insight practically? First, by developing greater self-assurance that isn't dependent on external validation. When you understand that people's reactions, or lack thereof, aren't reliable indicators of your value or impact. You can anchor your self-worth more firmly in your own assessment of your contributions and character. Second, we can become more intentional about providing acknowledgement to others. Knowing how powerful recognition can be in a world where so much goes unacknowledged, we can make conscious efforts to verbalize our positive impressions of others. This simple practice not only benefits the recipient, but creates a culture of greater transparency and connection. Third, we can approach rejection and perceived indifference with more resilience. When someone doesn't respond the way we hope, we can remember that their outward reaction might not reflect their true impression. This doesn't mean inventing false reassurances or ignoring genuine feedback, but rather maintaining perspective about the limitations of social responses as measures of our worth or impact. Let's look at some real-world contexts where this principle plays out. In leadership positions, effective managers understand that their team members are constantly forming impressions about their credibility, fairness, and vision, even when they're not providing direct feedback. The best leaders don't require constant affirmation, but understand their ongoing influence on organizational culture. In education, teachers often plant seeds of knowledge and inspiration that may not bloom until years later. The student who seems disengaged might later cite your class as a turning point in their intellectual development. The lesson that appears to fall flat might be precisely what a particular student needed to hear in that moment. In creative fields, artists, writers, and musicians put their work into the world, knowing that its impact will largely go unwitnessed. The majority of people who connect with creative work never communicate directly with its creator. Yet that invisible impact is no less real or meaningful. In personal relationships, we're constantly influencing each other in ways that transcend direct communication. The qualities you demonstrate consistently, reliability, honesty, compassion, register with others and shape their perception of you, even when they don't explicitly acknowledge these observations. What's particularly meaningful about this understanding is how it can transform our relationship with social anxiety. Many people struggle with persistent concerns about how they're being perceived, leading to self-consciousness that inhibits authentic self-expression. Recognizing the complex reality of social perception, that yes, people are forming impressions, but no, those impressions aren't as harsh or simplistic as we fear, can help release us from paralyzing self-monitoring. This insight also encourages us to be more deliberate about the impression we wish to make. If people are going to form impressions, regardless of whether we receive explicit feedback, we might as well be intentional about the qualities we want to embody. This isn't about creating a false persona, but rather about aligning our outward expression with our authentic values and priorities. The psychiatrist Carl Jung introduced the concept of the persona, the social face we present to the world. While Jung warned against becoming too identified with our persona at the expense of our deeper self, he recognized its importance in social functioning. Understanding the invisible impact of our persona can help us craft it more consciously, ensuring it reflects our genuine character rather than just social expediency. This brings us to an important nuance. While people are indeed noticing and thinking about you more than their reactions might suggest, this shouldn't be interpreted as evidence that you're constantly being judged or evaluated. Much of our social processing happens at a more neutral, observational level. People register your presence, your contributions, your unique qualities, without necessarily forming rigid judgments about them. In fact, research on the bystander effect and similar phenomena suggests that in many social contexts, people are actually paying less attention to specifics than we might assume. They're aware of you, but this awareness is often general rather than focused on the particular aspects of yourself that you're most concerned about. That small mistake you made during your presentation. Most people probably didn't even notice it, and those who did likely forgot about it moments later. This insight offers yet another dimension of freedom. Not only can you release yourself from dependence on external validation, but you can also free yourself from the assumption that others are scrutinizing your every move. The reality of social perception is much more forgiving than our anxieties would have us believe. So where does this leave us? With a more balanced understanding of our social visibility. You are not invisible. People do notice you, think about you, and form impressions of you that may never be directly communicated. But neither are you under the intense microscope that social anxiety might suggest. You exist in others' awareness in complex, nuanced ways that reflect the multifaceted nature of human perception. This understanding invites us to approach our social lives with greater confidence and authenticity. When you recognize that your impact extends far beyond the feedback you receive, you can focus less on managing others' perceptions and more on expressing your genuine self. You can trust that your presence matters, your contributions register, and your authentic self-expression reaches others, even when the evidence of this impact remains largely invisible to you. In a world increasingly driven by measurable metrics and visible engagement, there's something profoundly reassuring about this hidden dimension of human connection. Beyond the likes, comments, and explicit acknowledgments lies a deeper level of impact, one that speaks to our fundamental need to be seen and known by others, even if that recognition never takes an outwardly visible form. So the next time you feel ignored or overlooked, remember this truth. They may not be responding, but they're almost certainly noticing. Your presence registers, your words land, your actions matter. The impact may be invisible to you, but it's no less real, and in that understanding lies a kind of freedom, to be yourself, to offer your gifts, and to trust in the hidden connections that bind us, even in moments of apparent disconnection. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this exploration of the invisible dimensions of social connection, please like and subscribe for more insights into the fascinating complexities of human psychology and relationships. Until next time, remember that your presence in the world matters, whether that impact is acknowledged or not.